Hey there, thriving launchers. Today we're going to talk about a subject that we all need to be discussing more often, and that is money. Money. Also, how do you measure financial success, and what's the right way of answering that? Today's guest blows us away by giving us an answer I've never heard before, and one that has completely changed my outlook on how I'm measuring my financial wealth and success. So make sure to tune into that today. Welcome to Thriving Launch with Louise and Kamala Chambers, the show for heart-centered entrepreneurs who want it all.
5 days a week, we bring you different segments to inspire you to live a life of freedom. We interview the leading experts in the field of business, health, and love. Be sure to check out Training Tuesdays, where we give you a clear action plan to grow your own business.
How would you like to be able to interview world-class experts, sit down and have chats with people like Jack Canfield, Marianne Williamson, Robert Kiyosaki, Tim Ferriss, you name it? Would you love to interview other people that you really admire and consider to be your heroes? Well, we've created a course for you that teaches you how to podcast, how to set it all up, and how to get going so that you can really have a successful show and you can do it properly. Over at thrivinglaunch.com, we have a podcasting course, and it's there for you, waiting for you to snatch it up. So head on over to thrivinglaunch.com and let me teach you how to podcast the right way.
Today, we are here with Peter Dunn, also known as Pete the Planner, who is an award-winning comedian, an award-winning financial mind. He's a USA Today columnist, the author of 10 books, and he has a popular radio show, the Pete the Planner Show, and a podcast, $1 Million Plan. Pete has appeared regularly on CNN, Fox News, Fox Business, Good Morning America, numerous other radio programs, and he is regularly considered one of the foremost experts on financial wellness in the world.
All right, thriving launchers. I'm so excited. Right now we have Pete the Planner. We're ready to talk about finances, money. Pete, are you ready to launch?
Absolutely. I haven't launched in quite some time, so today's as good a day as any.
Let's do it. Well, one of the first things I want to ask you, and it's something that just before the interview, you and I, we were chatting, Kamala and all of us were talking, and one of the things that's actually been on my mind, so I find it very serendipitous that it's something that you said, hey, I want to talk about this today. One of the things I've been thinking about a lot is, how do I measure financial success? I mean, what does that even mean? And it changes. It changes for me. When I was broke and homeless, financial success meant I have enough money to put some money in my car and fuel that thing. And then now money is very different. It means, hey, I need to have X amount of dollars in savings. I don't go below that, and I'm able to diversify. But from your perspective, what is the right answer? How do we even really answer that properly? How do we measure financial success, or how do we know we're being financially successful?
Well, to begin, I would say that your definition is going to consistently evolve. I mean, I think there's a metric, which we'll get to, but I think back to my early 20s of how I viewed financial success. I did it two ways. Both are pretty gross. Number one is that I wanted to make more money than my father made during his career. And a lot of people do those sorts of things, but Louise, I'll tell you, it's pretty disgusting to trivialize my father's entire career down to my goal was to make more than him. So that's the immaturity.
We're not judging you.
No, it's gross. Believe me, that's a terrible definition. Then I got this weird place where I was doing okay in my career, and I said, I want to make as much money as I can to be able to afford whatever I want. And that's a really common definition, but then I figured out, well, that's a wild goose chase, right? That's a lifestyle creep personified. You'll never please yourself. You'll make more, spend more, make more, spend more. And so I abandoned that. So here's where I'm at currently. I want to have as few financial obligations as possible. That doesn't mean I'm cheap. It doesn't mean I don't buy stuff. It means I'm not going to commit my future income to what will become my past, right? I mean, if I create a bunch of debt, then all of a sudden I've got this lifestyle and these obligations I don't want to deal with. So for me, my current definition of success, which I hope to hold on to for a very long time, is to have as few obligations as possible. So that's where I start this conversation.
I absolutely love that. And one thing that I see a lot of people doing in the online space is there's all these different softwares we have to invest in, all these different monthly fees. And I'm always looking for how can we cut down on the monthly fees, everything that adds up. Okay, it's $10 here, $300 there. All of that adds up, and it drains away from the life force of our financial success. So what is one really practical tip that you'd share with us about this?
Well, I think it goes to the idea, if I were to approach you two on the street and say, hey, how's your financial life going? First off, that's a really weird way to start a conversation with two people on the street. So there's that.
They might just turn and run, because that's a really risky question. It's a risky thing for people to talk about.
It is, and where I'm fascinated about this conversation or that question is the idea that I don't really care about it's good or bad. I mean, I do care, but I'm not interested in that. Here's what I'm interested in. How do you determine whether you're going to say it's good or bad? What are you measuring your financial life on? And I find most people do it on four things. They'll say, oh, it's good, but based on their mood or their current financial stress level, right? So I'm sure do you guys have a pet? You need pets? You have to go to the vet. So you go to the vet, and the vet is touching your dog or whatever, and you don't know any of the parts of your dog. And so they're like, hey, this part's broken. You're like, I guess you're right. I don't know. And then you get a bill for $480 in the lobby, and then you go home and you see your friend, and your friend says, how's your financial life going? And what do you say?
It's not doing so well right now.
Exactly, right? So that's the first way. We are so fickle that even if your financial life's going great, if you get a little stress, an unexpected bill, or even, let's look on the flip side, it's that month in which you get 3 paychecks instead of 2, or you get a tax refund check, and you're like, it's great. Is it great? Or you just have a little bit more money? So that's the first way people measure. Second way is the classic debt. Oh, I owe $50,000 in student loans, so my financial life is terrible. But is it really terrible, or is it just the $50,000 a byproduct of an investment you made in yourself, right? So I don't like debt either for an answer. And then you get into income. Well, I used to work with professional athletes a lot. That's what I did as a financial advisor years ago. And I can tell you, making a lot of money doesn't actually mean anything unless you're doing something with the money. I think you guys both know that.
Yeah, one of the things that when you said that, it makes me think of Shaquille ONeal. He's one of the athletes that's really considered unique in that he's really taken his money and invested it very wisely, didn't blow it. He went out and got a master's degree. So he has a master's degree, I think, in something like business and something else in marketing or something. And he has a very diversified way of investing and making sure that his money has more longevity than just letting it sit in the bank and spending it.
Yeah, exactly. And so professional athletes sort of get a bad rap. I mean, it's some cliche to say they do bad things with their money, but to some degree that reputation has been earned by at least the work I've done within that space. And then the fourth way people say, how are you doing financially, how they answer it is based on assets. How much money's in the bank? But here's what I always think about that. Let's say it's a Tuesday, and you just found out your favorite old uncle died. He died. You're going to miss him. You're his only heir. He leaves you $25,000. And I see you tomorrow, and you've gotten over the sadness. You mourned very quickly, maybe too quickly. I mean, too soon, right?
Man.
Right? And then it's like I say, how you doing? And you say, you know what? My financial life's pretty good. But the only thing you did is you breathed longer than that guy. Right? You didn't do anything to earn the money. You just had an asset. You had $25,000. So, guys, I think all of those ways to measure how you're doing financially are really bad ways. I think income, assets, debt, and mood are all terrible ways to measure your financial life because they all have their faults.
So what's the magical way of really looking at that? And this is a great mindset shift even for me as I'm listening, because I know that in my journey currently and where I'm at, I look at assets and I look at income and I look at how much money I have. Basically, I look at the things that I own that are very valuable, the money that I have in the bank saved in case something happens or I want to buy something, that sense of comfort that, hey, if I have that $400 bill or whatever it might be, I'm okay. I'll take care of it and I've still got more money. And I have a work life and income that will easily replenish that money that I just spent. And so from my perspective, when you said all these 4 ways, I went, yeah, well, those are the 4 ways that I would answer it. So what is the other way of answering this?
I'm going to begin to answer this with quizzing you based on an email I received from one of my USA Today column readers. I have a column in USA Today. I get a lot of emails, and one of my readers sent me this question, and she said, she's 55. You're going to have to answer this, right? I'm off the hook here. This is on you. Her and her husband are 55 years old. Their household income is $400,000 a year, and they'd earned that for the last 10 years. She wants to retire early. She has $1.7 million set aside. All right. How's she doing?
You know, in my opinion, I think that if she just has 1.7 million saved, I don't think she's doing super well because she doesn't have some kind of goose egg that is somehow building income off of what she has. So that's just my opinion. Her money isn't working for her. And if she quits work and doesn't have something that allows her to still continue to make money while she's not working or somehow even semi-passive, then maybe I'd still be a little bit concerned for her.
Yeah, here's the issue. She's got no debt, but she made $4 million in the last 120 months. $4 million in the last 10 years, and she's got 1.7 to show for it, which means to me, Louise, she's addicted to her lifestyle. That she can't just say, well, I'm going to retire and cut my spending by 80%. No, you won't. You're lying. No, you won't. And that's where people get delusional with financial independence. So we all know people used to talk about retirement, and now we've started calling that financial independence. But I don't even like that. I like income independence, where you don't need your work income. It can be passive income. It can be the income generated off your investments. It can be a pension. I don't care what it is. But that lady, she needs to work because her lifestyle is crazy, which is why the best way to measure your financial life, getting back to your question from 5 minutes ago that sounds like I've talked around, is something we created called power percentage. Now, here's the good news. I have nothing to sell anyone right now, so I'm just going to tell you how it works. You don't have to buy the formula, which is great. Everybody wins. So what you do is take your gross monthly income. Okay, so this is before taxes, before benefits, all those sorts of things. So let's say if you make $60,000 a year, it's $5,000. Write that number off to the side. This is going to be mathematics. I hope everyone paid attention in middle school. Okay, so write that number to the side. And then on another column, you're going to write the following things. The amount of money you contribute to a retirement account on a monthly basis, the amount of money that your employer contributes to a retirement account for you on a monthly basis, any money you put into savings that won't be immediately spent on a vacation or holidays or something like that, any amount of your mortgage that goes to pay down principal in that month. So I have a rental property and I have our regular home. So each of those properties, there's an amount of principal that's repaid every month. I want to write down those principal amounts on this list. Any debt you pay off on a monthly basis or pay towards on a monthly basis that is not transportation and is not a credit card that you used in that month. So you can include student loans, you can use medical bills, you can put in, maybe you owe your bookie $50. I don't know what you're doing, right? But you write those things down. You write all those things down, you total them up, and then you divide by your gross monthly income. That tells you how efficient you are with your income. You got me?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So here's the scale, because the scale matters, right? If you're below 10%, if less, let's say $5,000 a month gross monthly income, less than $500 a month is either paying off a debt or accumulating as an asset, then guess what? If you're below 10%, you're in big trouble. Big trouble. I don't care how much money you have or how much money you make, how little debt you have, you're in big trouble. Between 11 and 20%, okay. 21 to 34 is good, and 35 and above is perfect. The goal in life, financially, is to make your power percentage go up by at least 1% a year. I'd like to be at 60% by the time I retire, because that means I'm 60% efficient with my income, which means I'm income independent.
So if you didn't do all that math instantaneously in your head, Thriving Launchers, I just want to remind you that at thrivinglaunch.com, we're going to have this transcribed, and so you can look at the notes. Also, Pete, what book would you recommend that you wrote that would go with this?
Your Money Life series is sort of my favorite that we've wrote, and by we, that's the royal we. I actually wrote them. But I would say Your Money Life because it's broken down into decades. So if you're in your 20s, read Your Money Life, your 20s. If you're in your 40s, read Your Money Life, your 40s. And so we've got one essentially for every decade.
Fantastic. So what would you recommend as a tip that we can start to increase that power number? I'm sorry, did you call it a power number or?
Yeah, power percentage.
Power percentage. What can we do?
There's so much you can do. I mean, you can increase the amount you pay towards your mortgage, which isn't really the first thing I would say, although I just said it. You can increase your retirement deposits, your savings deposits, pay down your student loans, pay off your medical bills. I mean, even invest in rental property. I mean, anything that either builds assets or pays down debts. I mean, it is a factor of net worth. So here's what won't do it, though. Buying stuff. Buying stuff will not increase your power percentage, but just about everything else will.
There's so little that we actually need. I find that as a world travelers, Louise and I, we travel the world a lot, and I find that we can live off of everything in our backpack, and even then we don't even use everything we have with us. So I just keep learning how little we actually need to live a good life, a really rich life. I'm not saying people should live off out of their backpack, but I think that there are so many ways that we can cut down and find that high that we get from shopping, through something else that fills us up even more.
I agree. Sometimes I'll look in my closet or as I'm doing laundry or ironing or something. You look in your closet like, why in the hell do I need all these shirts? Like, I mean, I have a washing machine. Why do I need these shirts? And it kind of gets crazy. It's like, at what point do we stop accumulating stuff and instead, to your point, accumulate experiences that make you grow as a person? And so, yeah, materialism is interesting. I've had an interesting relationship with it over time, but at this point in my life, I just don't need anything. Sure, I like good wine, don't get me wrong, but I'd rather just travel the world and have experiences.
And drink good wine where they serve it even cheaper, right?
Exactly. That's the key.
Right from the vineyards. Yeah, so before we close out, is there any last gem or tip or gift that you want to make sure the Thriving Launchers walk away with?
I think so often when people try to, and this is a little career advice for you, a little unsolicited career advice, which is always bad career advice, by the way. If you have the pleasure of doing something you love for a living, you know what I mean? You make a living in doing what you love. You owe it to yourself to measure success a little bit differently, right? Yes, money's great. Yes, financial stability is great. But so often people won't do what they love for a living because they're not willing to accept the money that comes with that. And to me, that's silly because you're on the wrong metric. If we're trying to live fulfilling lives and serve a community and do these sorts of things, but you're hung up on money, you will suffer throughout the rest of your career because you're going to be unhappy and you're thinking that money is what's going to make you happy. If you've earned the right to do what you love for a living, then by all means, use that metric of satisfaction in your career as a way to measure your success. Because if you don't, you'll be perpetually unhappy because you'll think your career is great, except that you don't make much money, but you're just looking at it wrong. So there's my unsolicited career/money advice to end the show.
That is a wonderful mindset shift, and a shift that I think that Kamala and I can really back 100% and say, Thriving Launchers, do what you love. This is something that Kamala and I are always preaching, and it's been really wonderful to have you here, Pete, because I know that I personally needed to have this conversation today. I know a lot of the listeners, a lot of you guys out there, we need to be able to discuss our finances, and as one of the things that we've gone over in today's show is it would be incredibly uncomfortable if someone just met us and asked us how our financial life is. But honestly, I think even if we've known somebody for a long time, that's a discussion that most of us won't ever have. And it's just having that conversation or thinking about it and even just having it with yourself can be very transformative. So it's been a real pleasure. Wonderful to have you here, Pete. And guys, remember, over on the website, we have the cheat sheet for you that goes through some of the math and the formula that he talked about today, which I think is incredibly important. I'll be looking at it. I'll be taking this interview and using it as a coaching lesson for myself. So thank you so much for joining today and coming on Thriving Launch.
No, my pleasure. It was a great time. Thanks for having me.
You've been listening to the Thriving Launch podcast. For books and resources related to today's episode, make sure to head over to thrivinglaunch.com. We'll see you there. On the next episode, we're going to be talking with a health expert on how to eat right so you have sustained energy throughout the day and how to find ways to bring in foods that are going to keep your energy going through your busy workday. If you've enjoyed this episode today, make sure that you're subscribed on iTunes and that you've left us a rating. It helps.